Skol, and welcome to this new City Skylines series I'm doing. This is kind of going to be a bit of a sort of experimental series. I haven't really done something like this before. Not that I've done a great deal of series in the past anyway, but I also haven't seen this done on YouTube before as well. So I sort of had this idea, and then I thought, and I didn't see anything kind of like this on YouTube. So I thought, let's give it a go. So this is kind of gonna be figuring this out as I go. So as you can probably tell by the title, this is going to be like a Viking or like in a Nordic sort of based village back in those sort of times. Now there's not really many Nordic assets on the workshop. At least not ones that are not modern, so more sort of this sort of time period. So I'm sort of having to kind of make them myself, which is very much where the sort of experimentation comes through. And it's actually worked out quite well. So the two main mods that have really helped this is the probable asphalt mod and the procedural objects mod. Now the great thing is those two work really well in combination, because you can actually take the ploppable asphalt mod, use procedural objects, and basically tweak it to however you want. So you can change the shape, or put it on an angle, or flip it around, which you can see that's what I'm doing here. But the other great thing is that because we're using the ploppable asphalt mod, we can put decals on top of it, which is where this sort of wooden texture comes from, which is really good. So it almost lets you make your own assets, almost like a 3D editor in some cases, without actually having to sort of need to know how to use a 3D editor, which is really cool. And that's kind of why I wanted to try this out as well. And what I will be doing is, obviously the wood there looks quite clean, so I'm going to actually come back and put like more sort of dirt decals onto it, so it looks a bit more grungy, a little more sort of weather worn, and things like that. So what we're building now is going to be one of the main buildings of this particular town. So there's going to be a couple of towns. This is going to be the biggest one, so it's going to be the main town, and it's situated near the bay, but a little bit further up, on a little bit of a higher terrain. So, and the reason why is a lot of these towns would obviously be situated on the waterfront for trading purposes, but they also need to be a little bit higher from the actual lake level, because they need to be able to look out for potential traders coming in, or even any threats that might be sort of heading their way as well. So they need to be able to see that, so that they can warn other people through use of horns and sort of fire signals as well. So that's kind of why that is. So the other thing is, I also want to put a bit of research into this one and try and make this reasonably accurate. Like, obviously I'm going to add a bit of flair, a bit of fancy-ish kind of style to it, but I want to make this fairly authentic as I can, sort of. So that's the plan as well. So this house is going to be, this is the main building, this is the Chieftain's Hall. So this is where the sort of the Earl, or if you played Skyrim, the Earl would reside. Now these buildings, while they're small compared to what we have now, they were actually quite big then. And these usually housed between sort of 20 to 45 people, give or take. So you had obviously the chieftains, their family, maybe some other families, and then obviously your servants and guards and things like that as well. So they housed quite a lot of people, which is why, and so that's why they're so long. They have they can house quite a few beds on either side. Chieftains' beds usually towards the back. And then they'll have like a big fire pit in the middle. And most houses have this because three things: they need light, they need heat, and they also need to be able to cook food. So they're in the middle so that it heats the whole place and lights the whole place fairly evenly. And so they can sort of cook food and things like that as well. Now, in combination with that, they don't really have windows. I'm not entirely sure why. I probably need to research it further, but my best guess is probably because it's the climate. It's very cold, so you don't want drafts coming in. And when you've got windows and hinges, like with moving objects or like swinging doors, you're obviously going to get small drafts coming through there. So they obviously want to minimize that and not have too much of a draft, because you're going to have it anyway with the wood. It's going to get in between the wood, so that's why there obviously no windows to try and minimize that, as it were. And then it also keeps that heat in a lot easier as well from the fire pit. Some houses even get built lower, so it's just kind of like you just see the roof and everything is underground, and they usually put like turf or soil on top, which sort of, I guess, helps fill in those gaps between the wood, and just helps insulate the sort of houses a bit better as well. Now, so this is basically, because this is the chieftain's house, it's on the main road, which is what we're doing here. We're actually detailing this up. I wanted to try and make these roads and this series in general quite detailed, quite believable and realistic looking, so I'm not just relying on the base textures. I'm sort of putting in these mud decals. I'm going to be putting these all along the roads. Like, it's not just going to be one particular section, so there's a lot of variation in the roads and those textures as well. So you can see here we're making another house. This is a slightly smaller house. Now, one thing to mention is that because we're using the pluggable asphalt mods, the way they work is the visual side, so like where you can see the black texture and you can place the decals on. You can only see it on one side, as you can see there now. So when I do the outside of the roof, I have to take those same objects and flip them so that I can do the underneath of the roof. Because if you go below onto the ground level and look up at the building, you won't actually see the roof or any of the decals that are on top of that. So I need to do that so that if we do go down on a lower level, you can sort of, you won't have these gaps in the roofs as well. It's not a huge deal, but I think it's nice to be able to do. And I think for cinematics as well, it'd be good to sort of have that so that the roof just doesn't disappear from the middle of nowhere. Now what I'll also try and do is sort of, I need to redo this, but I haven't, because some of them I haven't done, is actually putting the chimneys in the middle of the houses, because I mentioned before that sort of fireplace is right in the center, and I need to have the chimneys right above it to help filter out the smoke, so that people don't get smoke inhalation, so it doesn't back up. Because if you have it at the back of the house or against a wall where fireplaces in sort of modern day homes would be, it would take a while for the smoke to get out, and not all of it would sort of get out because it would get trapped. It would raise up to the roof and just kind of get stuck there. So that's why they have those chimneys right above the fireplaces, so the smoke can go straight out without any hassle, but the warmth can stay in. And obviously a little bit of warmth will escape through the chimney, but not a great deal as well. So the other thing we're doing is also putting these little sort of bollards on top of the roof, so it's trying to sort of put in the main sort of structural beams, but also the sort of like figureheads that you kind of see on the front of these houses. So it could be like an ornament or like a dragon head or some sort of deity like that as well. So I don't really have those assets, so I'm just kind of trying to use these bollards as sort of like not like a placeholder, but something that you can sort of, that might look like one from a distance or something as well. Just until something comes along, which probably won't, but it's there for now, and it does have a nice look as well. Now this house, you can see the right side of the roof actually goes all the way down to the ground, and the reason why that is some of these houses have that so that, from what I can tell, it's to help store like supplies and stuff that a house might need. Because these houses aren't going to be quite big, so you don't want to waste space by storing all your barrels and sort of crates inside the house, because you also need to have your living area and your cooking area as well. So by having this roof go all the way to the ground, you've got this covered space that you can put all your storage stuff in, and sort of basically just help save on space. Keeps it dry, keeps it safe from animals and stuff like that. But you've still got pretty easy access to all your supplies and stuff like that. Now the other thing is another thing that I'm going to be tackling a bit and sort of trying to figure out is whether this series and these towns are going to be functional, or whether it's just going to be more of like a model. And so what I mean by that is dealing with the trash, policing, hospitals and fire stuff. So I'm going to try and see if I can make it functional, because what I've done so far is I've actually already placed down these roads, and they are the invisible two-way roads. Now what I've done is to stop, you seeing cars driving around this, old village. I've actually moved the roads underneath the terrain. Now the good thing about the invisible roads, they don't stick to the terrain when you move it. So if you lower it, it's not going to edit the terrain. It's not going to push the terrain down. So you can put this road underneath the terrain, and so the cars will still be there. They'll still move and they'll still be functional, but you won't see them because they're underneath the terrain, which is really cool. So it means that I can have a potentially functioning town without seeing the trash vehicles or the ambulances and stuff like that, which is really cool. Speaking of roads, right now I'm putting down some wooden planks. Now, as far as I can tell, because I can't find too much information about this, for my best guess, I think it's to help carts and other sort of wheel-based things, maybe even horses, get around without the wheels getting stuck in the mud. Because with this type of climate, it's very wet and sort of a lot of rain, so it's going to be very muddy quite often. So if you're trying to push carts along in mud, you can tell it's not going to go terribly well. So you obviously need these planks to help get these sort of supply carts through and sort of not be bogged up and not trying to really put too much effort into pushing these things along. I thought maybe they might also be to help keep your feet clean, but considering the mud's going to get on them, probably not. So I think it's just to help with sort of logistical stuff and moving things around and things like that. As far as I can tell, I haven't done a huge amount of research because I just wanted to get started. I did a little bit in terms of placement of the villages. So a lot of these towns need to be obviously near water because of the trade routes, but also further enough away that, or on a higher ground, that they can actually see potential travellers or possible threats coming. So this one's not quite on the water's edge, but it's a bit higher, so they've got that visibility there. But also that they're close enough to the water that they can get trade boats in. And this town will probably extend towards the water because it's going to be the biggest town of the sort of three towns I intend to make. So that's kind of how that's going to work. So this is the last house we're doing. Just a whole bunch of residential houses for now. I'll probably start putting in some more like marketplaces and boating houses and meat halls and things like that. Now the other thing to note is quite commonly these houses were usually made in a combination of ways. One being mostly wood, or just all wood, and another being sort of more stone walls, obviously with a wooden roof, and then the last is sort of a mix of stone and wooden walls. So with the later, you would sort of have like the stone like base plate with the walls that might go up to sort of a meter in height, and then you sort of have wood going up from there, and then on the roofs as well. So I think because wood's probably more readily available than stone, that's probably why there isn't too many stone houses, and most of it is wood, just because it's easy to get, there's more of it, it's a lot easier to cut and sort of manufacture into sort of usable pieces of construction material, versus stone where it's maybe not so readily available, a little bit harder to sort of carve, and you've got to find the right rock pieces to put in place, but it's also probably a lot heavier as well. So there's different sort of styles of houses that they have, majority of it being wooden with sometimes with stone as well. And then the other thing is trying to make these houses and these lots not too big. They didn't really have too big of plots of land, so everything was quite compact in these sort of villages. They didn't really want to expand too far, so these sort of owned land is not going to be super huge as well. It was quite tricky finding the assets I needed. You would have noticed in the beginning I'm sort of really scrolling through everything trying to find assets that work well, and it is kind of doable, like to sort of put pieces together like a little construction set, but I'm still sort of always kind of looking for new assets that might fit as well, but a lot of it is just kind of using assets in ways that they weren't really intended to. Like I've sort of used a planter bench as like a fire pit sort of thing, and things like that. And you can see that I'm just putting one of the chimneys in the center of that one. Now what we do here is texturing the roofs a little bit more, because I didn't, like I said before, I didn't want these roofs to be like just these really nice clean wooden, just made buildings. I wanted a bit more grime and a bit more wear and tear. It was a bit tricky because when I got too close from a certain angle, these decals would actually disappear. They're sort of fighting each other to be on top. I did sort of eventually adjust it so that it didn't do that too much, and the effects sort of wore off, which is really weird, but it was a little tricky to get done. But that's going to be it for this episode. The episode's not going to be super long. This is kind of like a minor series as opposed to my main one, up until I sort of get a feel for whether people sort of like it. So they're going to be about sort of 15 minutes long. And if people like it, and if it sort of does well, I might pick up the frequency, or maybe make these episodes longer. So I really would like to know what you guys think of this, because it's just sort of Say I Never Die, and it's a bit sort of not common sort of cities series to do. So if you do, thumbs up, let me know. If you have any comments or ideas, by all means post them on the comments, and I'll definitely read them, respond, and take them on, because it would be interesting to sort of get your input as well. Anyway, that is it for this episode. I don't really have a Viking outro as opposed to my intro, so I'll try and think of one. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys, and until next time, I'll see you later.